Hello and welcome to the channel. Well, today this bike followed me home. Wasn't my fault. All I've done so far is unloaded it from the back of the ute. Let's have a closer look. Well, it's a 1982 Honda CT 110 Trail. This version here in Australia was sold to primary producers, commonly known as the agricultural or ag version. It has the high-low gearbox, which was commonly fitted to the bikes in North America, not so common here in Australia. Most of the ag bikes were used by farmers before the popularity of quad bikes, and vast majority of them, they didn't have an ADR plate, a compliance plate, and they couldn't be registered to ride on the road. But the good news is this bike has a compliance plate, so hopefully I can clean it up, get it back on the road and see just exactly how steep a hill the high-low gearbox can handle. The bike looks to be virtually complete. So far all I can see that's missing is the main stand, the centre stand, some of the clips for the air filter box, the air box. Good news is the rear light lens, that's still in place, usually that's smashed. What I'm going to do now, pump up the tyres, give the bike a quick wash. So I've given the bike a quick clean. The rear tyre unfortunately wouldn't pump up, so the tube's stuffed. The tyres are cracked and had it anyway. Let's have a walk around and we'll go through what I've found so far. One good thing about giving the bike a clean, you get a closer look and you see things that you didn't notice when you bought the bike. So obviously we need new tyres and tubes, and the fork gaiter, as you can see there, is perished. There's oil running down the fork leg, so that means the fork seals need changing, and the fender, the mudguard, is broken in a few places. That needs welding, possibly replacing. The front brake cable is missing, the adjuster's missing, the speedo cable is broken. Now the front brake lever and the bolt that holds it in place is missing. The mirrors obviously are missing. So the speedo only shows 8,000 kilometers, but who knows how long the cable's been broken. The switchgear all seems to work. I haven't seen indicators like this before. Are they what were fitted to this 1982 bike? Let me know, I don't know. Well, the engine is an unknown quantity so far. We'll start to look at that a little bit later. And as I mentioned before, the centre stand is missing. Looking at the brake shoes, they need changing. The chain and sprockets need changing. And the petrol tank, the gas tank, it is pretty smelly in there and quite rusty. So that will need a good clean. Bad news, there's a slight bit of corrosion just there. It's not through to the inside. Possibly that can be ground out and welded, as I mentioned before. The rear light lens is intact, the original. The air filter box, and as usual the tang is broken that holds it in place. But good news is the frame down tube, the frame tube cover looks to be in good condition. There's a slight crack down there, but I can fix that before it gets any worse. And as you can see, the rear sprocket is cactus, and it's one of the sprockets with the 4 lugs sticking out, so not as common, more difficult to find. The chain, no doubt, looking at the adjusters, is worn out. And I didn't mention before, the steering lock is missing, although we do still have the helmet holder on the rear rack. So all in all, quite a lot of work to do. And as you can see from this side, speedo cable is broken, front brake cable missing. And so the first thing I'll do, I'll remove the spark plug, put some oil into the cylinder, drain the engine oil, fill it with fresh oil before I try to kick it over. This bike, the 1982 bike, has contact breakers or points, CDI, electronic ignition, didn't come in for a couple more years, I think about 1985. So I've loosened the sump plug, So I'll drain the oil first. While that's draining, then I can remove the spark plug. Let's hope the engine has not got any nasty surprises in store. The oil is black, but at least there's oil in there. One thing you notice when you buy bikes that are being owned by farmers, everything seems to be held on with fencing wire. Don't ask me why. See if the spark plug will come out nice and easily. Looks to be quite a newish plug. Yeah, that's not a bad sign. So good so far. And that looks perfectly clean, so I don't think that's actually been used. Don't know what to make of that. Squirt a bit of oil in and see what happens. And that's the drain plug back in. And these bottles, I use these I take with me on my trips. They hold just 1 litre, and it's real handy to do an oil change. So all I'm using is the cheapest oil I can find, because this is virtually just a flushing oil. And if all goes well, in the not too distant future I'll be removing this clutch cover to clean the oil strainer, check the oil strainer and clean out the centrifugal oil filter. The bell, that's the ice cream man. Well, only a slight spill, that's pretty good for me. Check it with the dipstick. If you're not familiar with the dipstick, don't screw it all the way and leave it on the top. And the full maximum is there, minimum is there. And with the bike virtually straight up as if it's on the centre stand. And that's pretty good. Now let's find out, is the engine seized? Oh, that didn't sound very good. Oh, I don't like the sound of that. Maybe it's just the high-low gearbox. I'll have a look at that. Well, I've used the old trick of the big screwdriver, touching the engine and putting the end of the screwdriver to my ear, kicking the engine over, trying to narrow down where the clicking noise, the horrible noise, is coming from. And it seems to be somewhere in here or in the gearbox. It's difficult to pin it down accurately. I've operated the high-low gearbox. That seems to be working fine. But one thing I did notice, that the chain is as tight as a bowstring. And that's a bad idea to run a chain that tight. You can damage the gearbox. Maybe that's what's happened. Maybe that's why this bike was parked up in the first place.